Hello everybody, welcome back to another podcast. So we have a bunch of movies that were released in theaters last weekend. Among them were Angry Birds 2, Good Boys, 47 Meters Down, Uncaged, and others. Let's see how those movies did at the box office. Alright, let's get started. Coming in number one is surprisingly the R-rated comedy Good Boys. It's about a pair of teenagers or tweens who's invited to a party and get ready to a party, and they have to learn how to kiss on the quest to learn how to kiss so they can attend this party, so they don't appear awkward and everything, right? So this is a movie that I say could probably open to somewhere in the 15 to 20 million range. It has good reviews, 79% on Rotten Tomatoes, a B+ cinema score. It is produced by Seth Rogen, and it also Seth Rogen has a role in it as well, since the actual main actors, the kids, are unknowns, right? So 15 to 20 million because this is this is a Seth Rogen movie, essentially, like kids behaving badly, right? So 79% is actually very well reviewed for this type of movie, and this movie opened to 21 million, so it's just about right there, but on the upper estimate, near the upper end of my estimate, right? 21 million. These are still estimate figures, so the numbers might be a bit lower or a bit higher when the actual numbers comes in. So 21 million is actually a very good opening for a movie that cost 20 million to make. Let's see how this movie holds up in the second weekend. Alright, coming in number two is the Fast and Furious spin-off Hobbs Shaw. In its third weekend, the movie pulled in 14.1 million, a 44% drop-off from the previous weekend, which is actually, the drop-off is actually kind of low for this huge movie. I expect the drop-off to be higher, but it's actually holding on pretty well. The movie cost 200 million to make, but it only opened to about 60 million here. Let's see how it did overseas. Overseas, it pulled in 304 million for a worldwide total of 438 million. Despite not opening as well as the previous Fast and Furious movies, it has a chance to cross the 200 million mark domestically, or at least get close to it. The movie not opening as high as the previous movies are to be expected, but then again, this is a spin-off. This is built off on kind of like a new storyline for the series. I mean, they probably went as far as they can go with the current, the previous cast and crew. Now they're spinning off with this team, Hobbs and Shaw, and it's a more comedic take on the series, and Hobbs and Shaw is something that they could build upon. I mean, maybe the next Hobbs and Shaw movie will perform better than this one. Alright, number three is The Lion King. I pulled in 11.9 million in its fifth weekend, drop off about 41% from the previous weekend, and domestic gross is 496 million, so it's gonna cross 500 pretty soon. And let's see, overseas it pulled in 940 million for a worldwide total of 1.4 billion. Okay, number four is one of the new releases last weekend. It is the Angry Birds movie, which opened to about 10.5 million for a 3-day. That's a 3-day take, right? And for 6 days, it's actually opened on a Tuesday. For 6 days, it actually pulled in about 16.2 million, which is a far cry from the first movie. The first scary movie, right, opened to what? So the first movie opened to about 38 million. It went on to gross 107 million domestically and worldwide, and 352 million worldwide. And so this 10.5 million 3-day figure is not cutting it, even when it's open on Tuesday. Like, the demand is not there for Angry Birds 2, even though I thought I liked it. I liked the trailer. I thought it was funny, but then again, like, this is based on a property that has, I guess, far past its peak. This Angry Birds movie is based on a mobile game about launching birds into obstacles, destroying pigs, anyway, one of those movies that the plot is besides the point, and they tried to make a movie, and the first movie did it well, surprisingly well. I mean, I wasn't very high on the movie because I thought when the first movie was released, the game was past its peak. But then it did actually pretty well, and that's why 352 million is good enough for a sequel. Now they're making a sequel, so the budget's only 65 million, by the way, so which is actually pretty decent for an animated movie, right? And overseas they put in 30 million for a worldwide total 46 million, so it's very possible that they could make their budget back, and it's gone on to streaming. But I don't expect to see a Angry Birds movie 3 unless they exclusively made it for streaming. Alright, number 5 is Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. It's based on a book. In its second weekend, the movie pulled in about 10 million, about 52% drop off from the pre-opening weekend, which is kind of low for a horror movie. I expect to be in the high 50s, right? But it actually kind of low 50s is actually pretty decent. Domestic gross so far is about 40 million, and let's see how it did overseas. It hasn't opened that wide overseas yet, only 14 million from overseas for a worldwide total of 54 million. Okay, number 6 is another of the new releases last weekend. It is 47 Meters Down, Uncaged. It is a sequel to, I believe, the 2016 movie that stars Mandy Moore. This movie opened to about 9 million. I said this movie could probably open to about 5 million or so because, you know, the first movie has many more, this one doesn't, and or at least none of anyone that you know of, right? So I thought 5 million is fair, but it actually opened better than my projections, right? 9 million opening for 47 Meters Down Uncaged. Reviews wise, not that well reviewed, 51% on the tomato meter, C+ cinema score, which is actually kind of poor because, you know, people who actually went to watch this movie or probably fans, and they poll them and they say, you know, it's not that great. So expect a huge drop off in the second weekend. Alright, number 7 is Dora and the Lost City of Gold. This movie pulled in about 8.5 million in the second weekend. Drop off is about 51%. Domestic gross is about 33 million so far, and overseas it pulled in about 10 million for a worldwide total of 44 million. So, you know, it's not big here and it's not big overseas, but the budget's only about 50 million or so. The movie's probably gonna break even worldwide. But as you can see, there's not a huge demand for a Dora movie here or abroad. Number 8 is Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It pulled in 7.6 million in its fourth weekend. Drop off is about 35% from the previous weekend. Domestic gross is 114 million. And let's see how it did overseas. 66 million for a worldwide total of 180 million. Budget is about 90 million, so it's kind of a break even there. It hasn't opened that wide overseas yet. But like I said, judging by the previous performance of other Tarantino movies, it's actually going to perform pretty well overseas. Number 9 is Blinded by the Light, another new movie released last weekend. It is... despite the title, it is not a faith-based film, although it could be, right? It is about an immigrant family, the teenager in particular, who is, inspired and uplifted by the songs of Bruce Springsteen. Now, this is a movie that I thought could perform better than it did. This movie pulled in about 4.5 million in its opening weekend, right? But this is a movie that I said could probably open to 10 to 15 million because, of the previous movies that has the soundtrack of famous musicians, like Yesterday, right, with the Beatles soundtrack. Blinded by the Light has the soundtrack of Bruce Springsteen. Rocket Man has Elton John. Right? Was it Rocket Man? Yeah, I think it's Rocket Man. Has Elton John. And Bruce Springsteen is actually pretty popular right here, but this movie, I guess the legion of fans just didn't turn out for this movie. Maybe the fans for Springsteen and Blinded by the Light, there's not a lot of overlap there, maybe, I don't know. So I get that. I guess that explained the poor performance of Blinded by the Light. 4.5 million. I expect it to open higher because it has the soundtrack of Springsteen, right? Bruce Springsteen, the boss. So which is kind of disappointment there. I mean, maybe it's possible that people might have, fatigue from this movie, but I don't think so, right? Because if you have a movie that has the soundtrack of other famous musicians, it could actually perform, better than Blinded by the Light. I guess Springsteen's fans, just didn't turn out in force for this one. Alright, closing out the top 10 is The Art of Racing in the Rain. It's a drama about an aspiring race car driver and his dog. In his second weekend, is it second weekend? Yeah, second weekend it pulled in about 4.4 million. This movie opened to, I said this movie could probably open to somewhere in the 5 to 10 million, and it opened to about 8.1 million there, so it's actually right there. Of note is number 11, Whether You Go, Bernadette, a movie that stars Kate Blanchett as a woman who's, going through a midlife crisis. Her kids are grown up. She was a housewife. Her kids are grown up, and she has to find a new purpose in life. And she decided to restart her career. And she kind of one day just suddenly decided to get up and go without telling anybody. And she went to at either the Arctic or Antarctic to build the structure for the scientists there. This movie pulled in about 3.5 million in its opening frame. Reviews wise, it has a 44% on the tomato meter, which is not that great. So I guess it doesn't help word of mouth there, so it's probably gonna number 11 is probably gonna, as far as it's gonna get, it might probably pop up in the lower top 10, number 10 maybe, during a weekend where there's a major movie or so. But I think the potential box office potential for this movie is not that high. Alright, that's it for the top 10. Let's move on to the new releases this weekend. We're going to have 3 big ones. The biggest of which is probably Angel Has Fallen, which is the 3rd movie in the Fallen franchise. And then we have Overcomer, is a faith-based film. And then Ready or Not, a dark comedy that's open on Wednesday. Let's start off with Angel Has Fallen. So this is the 3rd movie that is in the Fallen franchise, right? Stars Gerard Butler, Morgan Freeman, Jada Pinkett Smith. Gerard Butler plays the protector of Morgan Freeman, who is the president of the United States. So during a trip out in the lakes or whatever, if you see the trailer, they get bombarded by drones carrying bombs, and I guess they got separated. And then he was framed. Butler's character was framed for trying to kill the president, right? For the murder of the president. So that's Angel Has Fallen. Angel, I guess, refers to Butler's character. He is the guardian angel of the president, and he's out to clear his name and to protect the president and thus the United States. All right, and he went out and teamed up with his dad. It's one of those movies where the son has to go back, to enlist the help of his father, I guess, who trains him in all this stuff. And and they pair up, and I guess they save the day. Alright, so this is a movie that is actually doing pretty well, this franchise-wise, right? The first movie opened to about 30 million. It went on to gross 99 million domestically and 170 million worldwide with a budget of 70 million. So that's why there's a sequel called London Has Fallen. And London Has Fallen opened to 21 million, 62 million domestically, and 205 million worldwide. So it's actually doing better worldwide. Take a dip domestically, but better worldwide. So as you can see, this movie probably has the overseas audience in mind, right? Even though I believe this movie will continue to drop the box office for this movie, it will continue to drop here. It's probably gonna be up overseas, right? So I think this movie could probably open somewhere in the 15 to 20 million range this weekend. Since school has started and all, and this is the 3rd movie in the franchise, and with sequels, right? They box office potential tend to drop. Box office gross tend to drop over time, with each subsequent sequel, unless it's like the Fast and Furious. So 15 to 20 million for Angel Has Fallen this weekend. Alright, then we have Overcomer. It is a faith-based film that from the people who brought us War Room, which did really well, right? The movie stars Alex Kendrick, Shari Rigsby, and Priscilla C. Shearer. As a comparison, War Room opened to 11 million, and which went on to gross 67 million domestically. It was one of these movies that just to stay and linger in theaters. That movie deal with a crisis in marriage, right? This movie, is about a coach who has to train one cross-country runner, and that character is played by Shearer, right? Who has asthma, and she is taught lessons in life. He is taught lessons in life, etc. Right? It's one of these faith-based where everyone just has to get through whatever struggles they're current on and believe, right? So that's Overcomer. Like I said, there's a market for faith-based film, evidenced by War Room and others. The God Is Not Dead series. But Overcomer is one of those kind of like feel-goody movies that doesn't have that of a heavy message like a War Room. People dealing with marital problems. So I think Overcomer's opening might be lower than that. So I think this movie could probably open to somewhere in the 5 to 8 million range. Alright, finally we have Ready or Not. It is a dark comedy starring Samara Weaving as a newlywed bride who has to go through the night being hunted by the family of the groom, right? This movie also stars Mark O'Brien, Adam Brody, Henry Czerny, I think, Andy McDowell is here as well. So yeah, this is one of those horror movies where she's trapped in this mansion. She has to hide from the other family members who are out to kill her. Right? Ha ha ha. It's surprisingly well reviewed on Rotten Tomatoes right now, 100%. And I have to point out that Samara Weaving looks a lot like Margot Robbie, which probably helps this movie a lot. A mistaken identity and all, right? But still, right? Not a lot of star power in this movie, and dark comedies are usually hard to sell at the box office unless you have a major star to anchor this movie. Maybe Samara Weaving is one. People mistaking her for Margot Robbie. But still, like I said, dark comedies are hard to sell. So 5 to 10 million opening for Ready or Not. Probably at the lower end of that, maybe, but who knows, right? It could surprise us. Alright, that's it for this week's podcast. Tune in next week to see how I did. Until next time, take care. Bye bye.